Now let's take a look at the basic line drawing tools that we have within Layout. Now, when you start drawing lines, you may want to draw them freehand or you may want to draw them on a grid. Now, the nice thing about Layout is that if you use graph paper, you can snap to a grid. Let me show you what I mean here. So if I go File, New, and just select any one of these graph papers, you'll see that when I select the line tool here, which is the first one we'll look at, you'll see that it snaps to these grid points. And that can be very handy if you want to draw something very precisely. Now, if I go back to this tab, which is my original document, and I try and draw, you'll see that I have no snapping. So if you want to draw things precisely, you might want to select a graph paper as your background. Now I'm going to go over to this graph paper and let's take a look at the line tools. Now the initial tool here is the line tool. It looks like a pencil and it's very similar to the tool that you use in SketchUp. All you have to do to lay down a line is left click and drag, and then you can lay down a line. If you want to, you can lay down a second line. And notice how this is actually filling in that detail. Now also notice that we can get inferences like we can in SketchUp here. So I'm getting the violet line, which is very similar to our inferences within the SketchUp program. Now the nice thing about this is that we can left click and drag to get a curved surface. So if I want a Bezier curve, I can just left click and drag to drag out that Bezier. It's very similar to Illustrator. If you left click by itself, it gives you a corner. Now, if I want to close the curve, all I have to do is just snap over that point and left click, and my input is finished. Now, once I have this shape, you'll see that I've got it filled in, and if I want, I can select the shape and move it. Now, you'll also notice that when I select this shape, I get all of these little triangular bits at the corners, and these simply allow me to scale. So if I select this one, I can scale on the diagonal. If I select one along the edge, I can scale horizontally. Now, if you left click off, it deselects it. If you double left click, it opens up the curve and allows you to edit it. So I can select any one of these points and I can move any one of these lines and resculpt my drawing. And then again, to end this, all I have to do is left click off of it. Now I can delete anything just by selecting it and hitting the delete key. Now we also have another drawing tool, and that's the freehand tool. It's pretty much exactly as indicated. It will draw freehand, it won't snap to grid points, and it's pretty straightforward. Now, if you're good at freehand drawing, this may be very handy. Now, if you want something a little bit more controlled, we can also use arcs. If I click on this button here, you can see we have 4 different types of arcs. So let's just go through them. We have the basic arc tool here. So if I select this, you can left click, drag out the radius of the arc, and sweep it out to whatever radius you want. Okay, let's try that one more time. It's a very good way to create just simple curved drawings. Now notice how this will only fill in from this point to this point. So it only fills in the portion of the curve that is drawn. Now I can rubber band select all of these and hit delete to get rid of them. And let's go to the 2-point arc. So if I select this one, it will create a baseline. So basically 2 points and then an arc on top of it. And again, it will fill in between those 2 points. So this is just a slightly different way to create an arc. So the nice thing is you can create arcs that are almost circular, or you can create arcs that are very, very flat. So again, we just click once, twice, and then drag up to create the depth of the arc. And again, I'm just going to select these and delete them. Now, the 3-point arc is a little bit different in that you select the points sequentially. So if I go 1, 2, and then that third point determines the arc. Now, this one can be very nice in that you can create arcs that are a little bit less regular than the other 2 types of arcs. And again, it fills in from endpoint to endpoint. Now, the last one is a little bit different. It's called the pie, and the big difference is in how it fills the curve. So if I select this and basically drag out a radius very similar to the first tool that we used, but you'll see that this is actually filling in a little bit differently. This fills in the pie shape. In other words, it fills in the angles and the radius, which is different than the arc. If I were to draw the same shape with the arc tool, you'll see that the fill is slightly different. So the arc tool only fills in from this point to this point, while the pie tool fills in the whole section. So as you can see, these are some very handy line tools that you can use within your layouts.